Well, we begin with late developments. The European Union's medicines regulator has approved a new coronavirus vaccine made by U.S. biotech company Novavax. It's the fifth jab to be given approval for use within the EU for people aged over 18. Well, the regulator said trial data showed the Novavax jab had no serious side effects. It requires 2 doses, 3 weeks apart. It's shown high effectiveness against older coronavirus variants, but it's unclear how it will perform against Omicron. Novavax uses a more traditional protein-based technology, raising hopes that it can convince people who are hesitant about taking newer mRNA vaccines. I'd like to bring in now Dr. Deepti Gurdasani, an epidemiologist at Queen Mary University in London. Doctor, thank you so much for your time. 5 vaccines are now approved in Europe. What does this latest Novavax shot bring to the table that the others are not?
I think it brings another vaccine, which is always a good thing, given the supply shortages that we have across multiple countries. It's also a vaccine that doesn't require the sort of cold storage that the mRNA vaccines do. So it's potentially a vaccine that can be used much more widely across low and middle income countries where cold chains may not be required in the same way that they're required with mRNA vaccines. Having said that, of course, we don't know what the effectiveness is against Omicron and, whether boosting is required in the same way as with other vaccines and when. So I think those are questions that now need to be urgently answered as we understand its value overall in terms of global vaccine equity.
Isn't what we need right now a vaccine that is specifically targeting Omicron?
So I don't think that in itself is sufficient. I mean, the thing is, we've had about a new variant every 3 to 6 months. And unless we are able to slow down the evolution of the virus by containing transmission, it's very, very likely that we'll be faced with a new variant in another 6 months or so. So what we need is multivalent vaccines that hit multiple variants, as well as other measures to slow down transmission so that we can actually slow down the rate of evolution of the virus. So we're not faced with a new variant every time we develop another vaccine against a previous variant.
So do you then envisage a situation where we'll have to get vaccinated more often, every couple of months, whenever a new variant, manifests itself?
I think that's very likely, and I don't think that's something novel. I mean, we need to remember that, we get vaccinated for flu with whatever strain of flu is circulating every single year. So I don't think that in itself, is massively problematic. But I do think that given it takes a 6-month period or so to approve a new vaccine and test it out, we do need to still slow the spread of the virus. Boosters will help, even boosters against previous variants, because they provide very, very high levels of immunity, which can override that sort of escape that we are seeing even with Omicron. So getting boosters is vitally important, but it's also important to take other measures alongside to reduce transmission so that the virus is not constantly ahead of vaccine development.
And talk to us a little bit, what is the most important metric right now? I mean, we're talking about Omicron being very contagious and spreads very easily. Should we be paying attention to the number of infections or the number of hospitalizations? What do you look at?
So I think the rate of spread is going to be the most important determining factor for impact. When you have a variant that's spreading or doubling every 2 days, that's faster than any variant we've seen so far. It doesn't matter in some ways how severe it is, because the impact will mostly be determined by the number of people infected. So even if a variant is less severe, that just buys you a few days, given cases are doubling every 2 days. So, given Omicron is spreading very, very rapidly, it has very, very high potential for population impact and overwhelming healthcare services. So we need to really act early because we're on that sort of curve of exponential spread. And we're already seeing what's happening in the UK and Denmark, and we need to preempt that in other parts of Europe.
And doctor, a final thought from you. Of course, a lot of people are hoping to see loved ones during this festive season. What's your message for those people?
I think my message would be we are in a crisis. I think there's a real possibility that many people across Europe will not have emergency care available to them in January the way things are headed. And the Omicron variant will spread in other parts of Europe as it has in Denmark and the UK, and we'll see similar crisis. So if you can, just hunker down for Christmas, and you can have social contact with people later on, because this is sort of an unprecedented crisis. Most of us can't even say what the predicted entire impact is going to be, but it's not worth taking the risk.
Dr. Deepti Gurdasani, epidemiologist at the Queen Mary University in London. Doctor, thank you so much for answering our questions.